Marwan Barghouti is sitting in Israeli prison for acts of terrorism, which of course means that both Hamas and Hollywood actors are asking for his release. What else would you expect? This whole situation has been very bizarre. The whole coverage of this has been very bizarre. The title on The Guardian, a UK newspaper, is "More than 200 leading cultural figures call for the release of jailed Palestinian leader." Now, I'm not sure at what point Marwan Barghouti become an official leader of the Palestinian movement, although he is one of the best representatives of the Palestinian movement. So I think he, to some extent, has earned this title. This is what we'll cover today. And of course, something else that I'd like to do today is congratulate E.R. Reichel for publishing Victory Now, Israel's Plan for Peace. We'll also talk about it a little bit towards the end of the show. So again, congratulations with that. I'll put the link so people can purchase it on Amazon in the chat. And I'll also jump to you, E.R. Reichel, if you have some opening thoughts, and also opening thoughts on, of course, Marwan Barghouti.
So first of all, thank you very much. I'm very proud to be releasing the book, and I'm happy I'll be able to talk about it later on in the show. Regarding Marwan Barghouti, this case is another evidence for my claim that Palestinianism is not an ethnicity. The ethnicity is some sort of whatever Arab ethnicity or tribal ethnicity there is. Palestinianism is an ideology. It's actually an anti-ideology. It's an anti-ideology in comparison to Zionism. It was established to destroy Zionism. It is an ideology. Palestinianism is an ideology meant for the destruction of the Jews in the Middle East and in the entire war. This is what it's all about. Now, why is Marwan case an evidence for this claim? Well, that's very simple. So what is a leader? What qualifies someone as a leader? Well, one of the qualifications is being accepted by the masses. Okay, so if people want to crown Barghouti over the Palestinians, that means that he is likely to be accepted by the masses. And this is also true to Yasser Arafat and to Hamas leaders and whatever. They are the natural leaders for the Palestinian people. What is their qualifying? What is in their CV? What is their life story? What is their experience? Why are they expected to be accepted as leaders by the Palestinians? Well, of course, because they've murdered Jewish people. This is what they're known for. They're terrorists, murderers. They killed as much Jews as they could. They organized killing of Jews. They orchestrated killing of Jews. And this is why they are expected to be accepted by the Palestinians. So everybody knows Palestinianism is a movement, an ideological movement aimed for killing Jews. It's basically Islamic Nazism, okay? So no surprise, everybody knows that. Nobody says it out loud for some reason, but it is shown, for example, by the proposed leaders of the Palestinian movement. So this is a disgrace. People calling for the release of Barghouti because he is the one to lead the Palestinians. This mostly shows exactly my point. So I just, of course, as always, I condemn it. This is very bad. Hopefully, Israel won't cave and he won't be released. If he will be, it's a disgrace. I hope he will die soon or spend the rest of his life in jail. That's what he deserves. And that's it for me in this regard.
Yeah, and somebody says in the chat, Barghouti is just another terrorist. But no, it's even worse. He's not just another terrorist. He is the representation, he's the manifestation of the Palestinian terrorism, of the Palestinian violence against Jews and Israel itself. Now, reading a bit further from the Guardian article, they mention a few people. So it includes people like Margaret Atwood, Philip Pullman, Zadie Smith, Annie Arno, Sir Ian McKellen, Benedict Cumberbatch. That one hurts a bit because I don't know any of these people almost, but Benedict Cumberbatch hurts. Tilda Swinton, Josh O'Connor, Mark Ruffalo, Gary Lineker, not surprising. Sting, Paul Simon, Brian Eno, Annie Lennox, Stephen Fry, which is also surprising and sad to me. And Delia Smith, I see as well. Michael, you mentioned that it's getting kind of hard to boycott people since everybody seems to be jumping on a bandwagon. But this is like truly despicable. I mean, you know, ignorance is not an excuse. If you stand behind something, you take the full ramifications of it. And this is like straight up support for terrorism. This is straight up support for, I mean, for killing of, I mean, not just, Jewish Israeli lives, but many Arab lives as well inside of Israel that these people seem to ignore.
Yeah, I mean this piece of crap human being, and I hate to even use the term human being, frankly, led the I think he was the junior Palestinian rebel leader for the first Intifada. And I don't know that any of these people, I'd be shocked if a majority of these geniuses who signed this petition actually know what an intifada means. It's the same globalize the intifada, which means killing everybody who doesn't believe, killing them, not having a discussion, killing them in by any means possible. And then he was involved in leading the second intifada. He was initially deported to Jordan, by the way, and he has 5 murders that he was convicted of and given several life sentences for that. And they're basically, and then there's some idiots that are saying, well, there were problems with the trial. Because after all, people who murder innocent people, which is effectively a war, but somehow now we have to have a perfect trial. Now, I don't believe there was any problem with the trial. There was no problem with the trial 10 years ago. This wasn't an issue 10 years ago. It wasn't an issue 5 years ago. This sudden new discovery that there was a problem with the trial is absurd, obviously. And he was also convicted of being morally responsible and backing the murders of hundreds of other people. And most likely he was involved in the planned murder of thousands of people. And these are not the people you give the benefit of the doubt to. These are not the people who are good people and were at the wrong place at the wrong time. This man was deported to Jordan. He came back. He committed additional acts of murder on innocent people, well planned. He wants to destroy Israel. There is no Palestinian movement. The Palestinian movement, and we shouldn't even use Zionism. We should just say the Palestinian movement is about destroying Israel. It's about a one-state solution which doesn't involve Israel. That's what the Palestinian movement is. And this sort of left virtue, not sort of, this left virtue signaling, this, let's see who can be more progressive. And the more progressive you are, the more you take psychopaths and terrorists and you support them. And that's exactly what happened here. To me, this was not surprising. And I even wonder why everybody was shocked. Mark Ruffalo has been he's anti-Semitic, he's anti-Israel, he's anti-West. He hates the country that has given him millions of dollars. We had a football player here, and I won't mention his name, in our NFL who I think he had a $30 to $50 million contract, and he hated America and he wouldn't stand for the national anthem. Now, luckily, the NFL finally stopped putting up with it, mostly because many people who watch American football actually love America. But this notion that you stand up and you hate America while they're handing you millions of dollars and guaranteed income and celebrity status is kind of the new thing. And that's what we're seeing here. And if our leaders would shun this, people would be less swayed. And also people are educated. But there's nothing new here.
Yeah, and all that would be needed is again sort of like a moral standing up for what is right. No need to, go after these people in any way. Simply say, no, you're wrong. You're supporting a genocidal state, and it's not the one that you're thinking of. You're supporting a culture that, as I've said, if Israel is gone, that's also the genocide of Palestinians because they no longer have any reason to exist. The only reason why Palestinians exist is to get rid of the Israeli state. That's why whenever you have a Palestinian, and that's why I think, as Yar said, it's not really an ethnic thing, because you don't have a Palestinian that is like pro-Israel. Even somebody born in Gaza, somebody like Yusuf, the son of Hamas, who was born in Gaza. I don't think he refers to them to himself as Palestinian because he understands like what this actually stands for, despite being born there. Now, I want to read more from the Guardian article because it's incredible. It continues: Israel's persistent refusal to release him. You know, if you don't like release your terrorists, that is like something you persistently do, as if like the policy is to release all well, unfortunately the policy of Israel has been to release all these terrorists, but continuing, Israel's persistent refusal to release him, including in the recent prisoner swap that followed on October ceasefire in the Gaza war, does not appear to be linked to any intelligence assessment that he would pose a threat to Israel's security, but instead to the influence he may wield in building unity and a momentum to a two-state solution. I mean, yeah, how far
Who
from...
wrote this?
This is the Guardian. Oh, do you want...
I just
yeah.
wanna touch on one phrase. So they've mentioned a particular prisoner swap. This was not a prisoner swap. Israel paid ransom to a terrorist organization to release its hostages. This is what happened. Who calls it a prisoner swap? This is like I don't like it's like calling I don't know. It's like saying it's like when the Nazis sent Jews to the gas chambers and they called it moving them east. Like, what the hell are you talking about? It's Israel did a horrible thing, by the way. Released convicted murderers, handed them over as trophies to Hamas and to the Palestinians in general, because in order to get our hostages back. This is horrible, and those bastards at the Guardian calling it a prisoner swap, and basically the context is they are bitter that we didn't give them the arch murderer Barghouti as well. So they use this phrase prisoner swap to actually convey Israel as the bad guys who didn't release them, these murderers, earlier, even though they supposedly should have. So this is an abomination of an article. This is just ugly.
Yeah, and even the second part, right? The no intelligence assessment that he poses a threat to Israel's security, but he may wield in building unity and a momentum to a two-state solution. That is a threat to Israeli national security. Uniting all these terrorists towards hating Israel is a threat to national security.
Committing atrocious acts and leading the two intifadas, in my mind, was sufficient to put this guy in the gas chamber. I mean, frankly, and Israel is trying to fix it. Israel continues with their stupidity by keeping these people alive, paying for them to stay in prison every year in relatively good conditions, certainly better than those people, for example, who were having missiles every day in the south and the north, and then uses them, as the ARC absolutely correctly pointed out, and then uses them to get our people back, thereby making sure that the Palestinians will commit additional acts of kidnapping and terrorism in the future, and perpetuating this whole thing. It is one utterly stupid mistake after another, all couched in kind of, you don't understand how complicated this situation is. The situation is not that complicated. There's a group of people that want to annihilate a country and a people. They want to start with Israel, and they've said death to America. I don't understand why we put up with it in America. We somehow don't take them seriously because 9/11 wasn't enough for us. Never mind all the subsequent attacks. And that's the big problem. Not whether he's a future problem. This man deserves to be in a gas chamber and executed. And of course, if he committed Intifada 1 and 2, if he led them, of course he's going to commit Intifada 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, and you just say, even if he didn't, which I think is a hilarious assumption that he would just not do anything from now on. Because, like, again, if somebody like him, like, reform himself or whatever you want to call it, he wouldn't want to be released. I mean, somebody that would, be sorry for what he did would say, okay, my life is done. Like, there are some things that you do that you can't really be, there is no redemption path for. There is no path forward. And I want to go a little bit more into the way he's portrayed, but I want to finish the rest of the article. It continues, the campaign to release Barghouti intentionally echoes the cultural movement that was central to securing the freedom of Nelson Mandela and ending apartheid in South Africa. Mandela himself said in 2002, what is happening to Barghouti is the same as what happened to me. And I don't know, the more I read people comparing people to Nelson Mandela, or even read from Nelson Mandela himself, I'm starting to be doubtful because I don't know much about South African apartheid or the whole ANC that he started, or even the way it was fought. But I mean, yeah, what is this comparison him to even people that are generally accepted as people what non-violent resistance did Marwan Barghouti lead?
No, listen, I have a very simple thing to say about it. When a decent person, a rational person, a Western person talks about freedom, he talks about freedom from oppression, freedom from coercion. When a Palestinian talks about freedom, he sees freedom as a thing that is actually a contradiction, because Palestinian sees freedom as freedom to oppress, freedom to coerce. There is no such thing, because freedom is a political situation where people are not being oppressed, not being coerced, and not allowed to oppress and coerce. But when Palestinians talk about freedom, is the freedom to kill Jews, is the freedom to coerce, is the freedom to live in a tribe using women as slaves. This is the freedom they're talking about. And as evidence, this is what they're doing. This is what they're doing in Gaza. This is what they're doing in their territories in Judea and Samaria. This is what they did in October 7th. This is what this culture is all about. So when they're making this comparison with Mandela, for example, they're trying to brand themselves as people fighting for freedom. But if you ask a Palestinian what is freedom, and that when you talk about freedom, do you want women to be free to live as independent people? They would say no. Do you want Jewish people to be free to live? They would say no. So they talk about freedom to live as murderous savages.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what everybody is supporting as well. And I mean, either these actors supporting the Palestinian movement or anybody, because again, you cannot, when you support a certain group, you are supporting them with all the baggage that is coming with it, right? When I support Israel, I try to support the best parts of it, but I'm taking with that all the bad parts of it as well. You're taking the whole side. When it comes to Palestinians, what if they won, their side winning would be you have another Islamist state in Middle East. How is that a victory for anybody? But you see that the amount of support for the Palestinian movement, you cannot escape from what they actually stand for. You cannot escape that they stand for killing Jews, that they stand for even killing or trying to destroy Western civilization, trying to destroy Western countries, trying to implement the worst parts of Islam, the worst parts of authoritarian states inside of them. I mean, again, look at Gaza. Was there any movement for freedom? Look at the last election the Palestinians were forced to have. Was that was that barely the oppression won over freedom? No, it was one terrorist organization running against the other terrorist organization, and then you had a few small parties that barely got any traction, and I'm not even sure if those would stand for anything good. So I can finish the article by reading this one. The full statement that they signed read, "We express our grave concern at the continuing imprisonment of Marwan Barghouti, his violent mistreatment and denial of legal rights whilst in prison. We call upon the United Nations and the governments of the world to actively seek the release of Marwan Barghouti from Israel prison." And Michael, if that is not like the biggest condemnation of the UN or this group, I don't know what is. Yeah, do you have anything to add? Because I have a few more
Look,
things to. Yeah.
by this point, 2+ years after October 7th, we already knew the UN was the most despicable organization prior to October 7th. We knew the number of sanctions against Israel dwarfed sanctions against every other human rights violating regime. When you add them all up, it didn't add up to the number of sanctions against Israel. There are 2 million Arabs in Israel that live in peace and equivalent rights to the Jews that are there, and frankly have better lives, much better lives, better opportunities and freedom, and also safer lives. I mean, that is the fundamental basis of better lives than they do in any Arab country, never mind in Gaza, which in itself was another country. I mean, Gaza was left alone, Israel left there. The entire hypothesis that the UN stands for anything other than the most despicable regimes on the planet. Again, it is unclear to me why Donald Trump has let the US stay there in the UN. I don't know why we waste our time, our traffic, our pollution, and our money on housing the UN. It's not a bad institution. It's a despicable institution. And lastly, I'll just say the UN has condemned itself. UNRWA's obvious complicitness with Hamas, with building tunnels, with shielding terrorists in UNRWA, UNRWA facilities in Gaza, Hezbollah, and the joke that UNIFIL, the United Nations group that was supposed to be overseeing southern Lebanon, which is complicit with Hezbollah and has effectively been mostly disbanded now, and as this ridiculous peace accord that Israel has with Lebanon, while Hezbollah is trying to rearm and Israel has to bomb every day, if not multiple times a day. I mean, the UN is behind all of this. And the fact is, the majority of countries that exist in our world are despots and tyrants and autocrats and kleptocrats and theocrats, and they outnumber the democracies and the good countries by a lot. And therefore, if you have a nice democratic system which looks at the majority, you end up with the UN, which is basically the West paying for its own destruction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how people are, like the pro-Palestinians are able to get away with this, because on one hand, Palestinians are actively saying, give us our terrorist back. We want our terrorist guy back. But the West is somehow saying, give them this peace activist back. He will unite the Palestinian movement. He will bring peace. I mean, Palestinians are proud about what Marwan Barghouti is. He is the representation of their culture. I mean, if you go to any poll, and this is what's interesting, right? If you go into polls, the Palestinians support October 7th. They support the violence against the Israeli state. They think violence is the only solution. They don't think, stopping Hamas. They don't want Hamas to disarm. Every single thing you can look at, they are all for supporting violence against the Israeli state. And when you look at who is the most popular leader right now, it is Marwan Barghouti. So I don't think that copes, right? You cannot have that everybody supports violence, but somehow this guy that everybody supports, no, he's not for violence.
Well, Palestinians has a currency, unfortunately, the Western world seeks. And the Palestinian currency is being poor, is living a bad, sad, unhappy life. It's irrelevant for the world that it is because of their ideology and their actions. They couldn't care less. The Western world of our days is unfortunately full of guilt. And there is nothing that people in the Western world like more than having this false premise and as if they're doing something good by helping those poor people. So basically, the Palestinians pay this guilt-eaten Western world with the currency they need, which is being poor. And then when the Western world gives them a free pass from moral responsibility for their actions, they can feel a little bit better with themselves. So this is the ugly case we're seeing. And the source for it is altruism, is the moral premise that you have to sacrifice yourself for the weak and for the poor and for the ones suffering. And this basically kills morality. It creates a moral inversion. And we see it with the way the Western world treats the Palestinians. And there is another thing here. You know, people try to talk about the free pass from responsibility. Like when I talk to people, you know, and I tell them about the moral responsibility of the Palestinians as a political movement, they say, oh, well, but the Palestinians, they are held hostage by Hamas and they are forced to cooperate and they're victims. If that's the case, why do you want Barghouti? Why do you promote Barghouti as the only one who could be accepted by the Palestinians as a leader? And his only credentials is that he murdered Jews. So what's the case here? So this also brings another point, that if you identify yourself as a Palestinian, you basically say you are a member of the Palestinian political movement, you hold the Palestinian ideology, and therefore you are held accountable for the actions done on the behalf of the Palestinians. This is a political movement. It's like being what's going on right now after October 7th is like being after World War II. Everybody knows what happened, and there are still people calling themselves Nazis and proud about it. This is insane.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, when it comes to sort of like, again, the way Hamas is like asking for the release of these people or of their terrorists back, right? Is people are saying, you know, Palestinians want peace. If Palestinians want peace, why do you want your terrorists back? If somebody is reformed, if somebody says, okay, we're done with fighting Israel, we're done with doing this, why do you need your people that are, as Yara said, only qualification that they have is the fact that they fight, that they are in jail for killing Jews or for failing to kill Jews?
The same reason that Black Lives Matter has George Floyd as their showpiece and leader. And what happened to George Floyd was inexcusable and wasn't excused in the end, but it should never have happened. It was a tragedy. But you can't have a leader who's a criminal. We had this is not new. We had Rodney King, who was in a Grand Theft Auto and a bunch of a rap sheet as long as a page, including an A4 page, by the way. And he was the leader. He was the resistance leader when the riots occurred in LA after cops used excessive force to take him down. And it was terrible that the cops weren't convicted. But frankly, the fundamental problem was if he hadn't stolen an automobile, none of this would have happened. And this is absolutely true in the despicable world that we're talking about. There are no Palestinian leaders that stand up for anything good other than maybe the, quote, son of Hamas, who's been exiled. And if he steps foot into any of these countries that all these wonderful actors and so on are supporting, then he would be killed as a heretic and a rebel and a Jew-loving and a Western-loving person. There are no leaders available to these people. They don't want real leaders. They don't want a real culture. All they want to do is receive handouts from the West, which they get, and all these so-called do-gooder non-governmental organizations, which are as corrupt as Hamas itself, and love to virtue signal. And there is nothing about this culture that has added anything good to the world. There's nothing about Iran since the revolution that has added anything good to the world, except for the people that have escaped or who have managed to get out of there otherwise, and have added a lot to the world. And to at least for the handful of people that I know from Iran, none of them are proud of their country as it is their government. They're proud of their country. They're not proud of their government. They're actually ashamed of it. And they want to see it return to a democracy or something towards democracy. The Palestinians don't have any of that. They are uneducated. The only education they receive is about hatred and killing. There are no good software engineers in Gaza, folks. And this notion that Hamas was going to lay down its arms and suddenly get job training to become accountants or the like is of course typical Western baloney. Because after all, we're all the same, except some people are just a little bit better educated. No, some people are evil. Actually, a lot of people are evil. And it is not Israel's fault what has happened. This situation is not going to resolve itself until the Western world treats the Islamists, the militant Islamists, which is redundant, the same way that we treated Nazi Germany and Japan under the emperor, which is that there is no room in this world for their philosophy. Full stop. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen now because we've stopped teaching Western values.
Somebody says there are many George Floyd murals in the West Bank also. I'm not sure if it's true.
Of course, there are Hitler murals. This is, again, none of this is really news. It's just a variation on a theme of hatred and blame and envy. It's despicable. For those of you, I want to say one other thing. I am in Miami right now, but I'll be back in Tel Aviv shortly. For those of you that want to see how you build a culture in the middle of a desert from nothing, and nobody liked Israel, nobody liked Jews. It wasn't the goodness of the UN's heart. It was the shame of the Western world that had allowed what happened in Germany to go on for so long, that Israel was formed in a desert. Go to Tel Aviv. The skyscrapers look just the same as the financial district of downtown Manhattan. Frankly, the restaurants are a bit better than downtown Manhattan. Not as good as Midtown, but downtown they're a bit better. And that's how you build a culture. There are a lot of problems in Israel, but it's the same desert that Jordan and Egypt, Gaza had a huge advantage. They are sitting on some of the prettiest beaches in the world. They could have set up Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons hotels, charged enormous sums, and had an amazing culture just on tourism. But they built terror tunnels instead. This is what the UN is supporting. This is what the progressives are supporting. They're supporting using taxpayer dollars to give it to people who are led by theocrats and people that just want to annihilate the West and are happy to blow themselves up with bombs.
Yeah, I mean, just a reminder on, Gaza, I think just quickly before the Second Intifada, or even before the First Intifada, generally Israel, right? It's Gaza used to have an airport. Gaza had a chance to, stay inside of Israel and go slowly towards reforming, go slowly towards, becoming equal citizens with all Israelis. The same thing in Judea and Samaria, and Palestinians there, also called Palestinians there. They were free, at some point, were free to travel, were residents, and could eventually become citizens. But say, no, let's actually fight. Let's see if we can get something more out of this, even though we've already lost a couple of times. Somebody said this is racism towards Palestinians. I mean, pick what you want. Either you believe that Arabs inside of Israel are the same people, like the same Palestinians, and somehow people are different about Arabs in Israel than Palestinians in Gaza, or those are two different people, and then Palestinians is an ideology. It's not some kind of ethnic group or anything in that regard. So pick one of those, and then we can talk. I mean, specifically, again, going back to Barghouti, right? Barghouti is part of Fatah, but you have like Hamas asking for their release. I mean, how is that not like a quick, sort of pointed towards people? Okay, something different is happening here. Why is Hamas asking for a release of a Fatah leader? Hamas that is technically kind of at war with Fatah still.
Yeah, so just a quick history. So basically, when Israel gave Gaza to the Palestinians voted for Hamas and Fatah. And then I think 2 years later, in 2007, basically Hamas butchered the Fatah leadership, threw them off the roofs, etc., and basically took over Gaza. And ever since Hamas and Fatah are basically at war over power. Fatah is now ruling their territories in Judea and Samaria. The Israeli intelligence forces and IDF are helping Fatah not to be overrun by Hamas cells in Judea and Samaria, which exist. And in Gaza, Hamas is ruling, of course. This is actually a joint. It's like Hamas is like the main dictatorship, but they have all of these militias like the Islamic Jihad and Al Qaeda and ISIS and two communist fractions all joined together. And the reason Hamas wants Barghouti out is the same reason that Hamas is currently coexisting with the communist Palestinians and the other jihadi Palestinians and the Al Qaeda Palestinians and the ISIS Palestinians. And the reason is before right now they're not focused on massacring each other. They're just doing like a little bit here and there. Right now they are focused on eliminating the Jews. So basically the strategy, okay, we have a bigger problem now. The Jews still exist. This is very bad for Palestinians, that Jews are still alive in this planet. So they're all joining forces to kill all the Jews first. And then they're going to move on to massacre each other. And this is like what's going on, for example, with Sudan. So Sudan has a civil war between the North and the South. The North was Muslim and the South was Christian. And then Sudan has split it into Sudan and South Sudan. So all the Christians live in South Sudan right now. And then what is now called Sudan, which is the northern part, is in a brutal civil war, because now they're basically saying, okay, we're going to focus on killing each other. We're going to kill our fellow Muslim brothers because we're no longer in the same state with the Christians. So they're just massacring each other. And this is one of the biggest genocides in the past, I think, 10 or more years, what's going on in Sudan right now. And this is just a mirror image of this Islamist, barbaric, tribalist ideology. So the only reason right now Hamas wants Barghouti out, because for them he is essential for destroying the Jews. He will help them politically to unite the Palestinians even more against the Jews.
Yeah, let's not forget that it's very easy to write email support and stupid articles to support anybody. I mean, it's no skin off Hamas's back if they support a Fatah member, because it's just another person that hates the Jews and hates the West and wants to blow stuff up. One thing I would love to just ask anybody who knows the progressives that are in the anyone in the audience that's progressive, give me the name of one leader that the progressives support who's actually wants to create something, who talks about an economy, who talks about a flourishing capitalistic market, and who actually wants to contribute to the world's economy. I don't know of any. I've never seen anyone support such a person.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I could point out maybe some. No, I don't. You'd be hard pressed to find actual progressives. Maybe like some like left wing like liberals who usually like are smart enough to like distance themselves from progressivism. But yeah, absolutely. When it comes to that ideology, there is nothing really there. So yeah, I mean, what else is there to really say about Marwan Barghouti? I mean, well, actually, on the sort of like fight between Hamas and Fatah, that is what you would expect from any totalitarian or any authoritarian group, right? It's they hate each other. They have to be at war with each other. I mean, my favorite stuff to read is like 6 Day War, and the way like the Arab countries that were at war with Israel, the way they acted towards each other. It's like Egypt is like, hey, you guys coming? Jordan, are you coming with like the planes? And Jordan is like, yeah, coming. No, not coming. Like they hate each other. They were so disunited in destroying Israel that it's hilarious. The same, and this is what you always get, right? It's their only unity is only towards the hatred of Israel. That's why you have the sort of every Middle Eastern country. They are supporting Palestinians in fighting Israel. But when it comes to taking Palestinians in, nobody wants them. And nobody likes for example, the Muslim Brotherhood, right? Nobody really wants to deal with them. Nobody really wants them in their land. Nobody wants Palestinians in their land. Look at the Jordan elections. They hate their Palestinian population because they completely go against everything the country sort of wants to present itself is. But because there is this greater enemy right now, because there is Israel, this is what will unite against. ER, anything you'd like to add to
that? Once again, just to remind you all, even though I've already said it, Palestinism is an ideology and a political movement. This is not an ethnicity. So when we criticize Palestinianism, we criticize the core ideas of this evil philosophy, and we criticize the horrible actions done by those ideas, and of course also their statements, which are a bunch of lies and hatred. So this is just one thing important to remember and to differentiate between ethnicity and a political movement and ideology.
Michael, anything more to add?
No, I think we covered it. It's a despicable. It's like any ism that is almost every ism is negative ism. The only ism that I'm aware, one of the few isms that I know of, is capitalism, which is actually built to create. But most other isms are built to destroy.
Yeah, or rather, capitalism is built around human nature, which of course needs to be free in order to produce. That's why and that's why I hate when people say, Soviet Union built something or anything. And my favorite example is Tetris. Tetris wasn't created by Soviet Union. Tetris was created by Alexei Pajitnov, who worked and wasn't allowed the fruits of his labor, wasn't allowed the fruits of Tetris, the greatest video game ever created. And I like that story because this has a good ending. Alexei Pajitnov was allowed to get intellectual property over Tetris in America. He was allowed the recognition over his productivity in America. He wouldn't have been allowed that in Soviet Union or any authoritarian state for that matter. Well, with that, since we have some time, Victory Now finally published after a few weeks. We've been talking about that it would be this week. So yeah, anything you'd like to tell us about this?
I'm very proud. I'm very happy this book is out. I'm also really delighted to announce it while on the show with Michael Kaufman, because Michael is our first major supporter. He's our greatest supporter, and this book would not have come out without the support of Michael. So I want to personally and publicly thank you for your support. I really appreciate that. I'm very happy. I want to tell you guys, you can visit www.victory.now right now, and you'll have a button there to purchase the book, or you can enter the Amazon link in the chat in the beginning of the show. As of now, there is a Kindle copy. As of now, it is only the English version. And once the Hebrew version will come out in a few months, then this is when we begin the truly big campaign for the book, because it's mostly meant to be published in Israel. But having said that, this book, so I've happened to reread it a few days ago because it's out now, and I wanted to make sure everything is all right. And I just want to say, me personally, and I'm not only saying it as marketing, I'm really sharing my experience. I had a lot of fun reading it, even though this is a book, I'm its publisher. It was still fun to read it again. It's written well. It's interesting. It's not like one of those boring books, or it takes you through, it gives you nice examples for history, and it shows a point. And it's not like one of those books when you wait for the end to get what the author wants from you. We start with like a little summary, and then we move on to show everything and demonstrate. So this book is really fun to read. It's really interesting. My purpose with this book is for it to be widespread. I want our first readers to be agents of distribution if they liked it. So if you purchase the book, which is only $10, and you read it and you like it, so we give you also the platform to spread it and have other people read it and become ambassadors of this idea. So this is the purpose of the book: have people read it, understand it, be able to talk about it and spread it and make it become viral. So more and more people will hold these ideas. Now, the more people hold these ideas, the stronger they become, the more influence they would have over the real world, because people will demand action being done in accordance with those ideas. We'll have people asking politicians to actually win and not only to surrender to evil. So once again, I'm very happy. I'm very proud. I call all the viewers to go to www.victory.now and press that button that says read now. And I promise you it will be a fun read.
Yeah, absolutely. I just recently finally got my copy of John David Lewis's Nothing Less Than Victory. So I'm excited to read that. And I've already read some of the Victory Now because I got some of the early copies. So yeah, this is absolutely great to see. I mean, having sort of like one thing where, people can go to and have like a clear path, because I talk to some people behind the scenes. So yeah, having a clear path not only towards like winning and giving the moral argument why it has to be done, but also giving the practical of like what needs to be done and how this can be done and how it was done in the past. So yeah, this is great to see. Michael, any thoughts on this from you?
Yeah, I tell you what, I supported it, and I think it's one of the most important books, philosophical, civilization relevant philosophical books. If you wonder how the U.S. got stuck in Afghanistan for so long, or in Iraq for so long, and has failed miserably, and if you wonder how the U.S. effectively lost the war in Vietnam and basically ended up neutral to losing in Korea, to the extent that North Korea exists and is one of the most despicable countries on the planet and also has nuclear weapons, you could say we lost the war in Korea. We haven't really won a big war in the US since World War II. And how is it that a country that spends the kind of money that we have and has the technological prowess that we have in the US, how is it that we could be so stuck? And well, while the situation with Israel is not identical at all, because in a lot of ways the world has prevented Israel from winning. But frankly, the thing that has mostly prevented the U.S. from winning and has prevented Israel from winning is their own philosophy and this growing stupidity of how you fight a war and the notion that you have to worry about civilian casualties as a priority and actually sacrifice your own soldiers and so on and so forth. And when I started to read some of the early versions of what AR and his group were putting together, I saw this as frankly relevant to how the West thinks about wars and thinks about when people point a gun at you and blow away your fellow citizens and rape and maim and kill them, and how we respond and how pathetic we have become in the West. Now, that's the same way we become with mass murderers who are let out of prison after 20 years instead of being put to death. We would rather engage, we'd rather house them and so on. But to do that on a country scale is remarkable. I think this is a super important book. I think it's really relevant to the entire Western world. And I don't like to make dire predictions, but we're going to have the shit kicked out of us in the West again after 9/11 and after October 7th and so on if we don't get our act together. The best way to have peace in the world is to fight wars to win them and to let people know that we are going to annihilate you if you come after us. And I've used very brutal words on purpose here, and I think Ira's book will lay out the way to think about this and the right way to think about this. Unfortunately, for people like Mark Ruffalo and Sir Ian McKellen and so on and so forth, they need to have a family member or themselves maimed or killed before they're going to wake up to this problem. And the West needs to wake up in general. This is a very important book, and I think people should give it a go.
Yeah, I mean that obvious, having something happen to your family member is obviously, something I wouldn't wish to anybody. But yeah, it looks like sort of the West has like fallen asleep about, not even fallen asleep, but like lacks the understanding of how evil some people can be, how evil other countries are, and that many countries are actively trying to destroy Western countries. Deborah in the chat says, Goldwater said it in 1964, you cannot win a limited war. When you set limits on yourself that it don't apply to the enemy, you cannot win. And yeah, I think Goldwater was probably the last presidential candidate who really, I think, could have been properly principled. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to, like we could use Israel, but we've even seen that like earlier with Ukraine, the amount of lack of taking the Russian threat seriously. The fact that, I mean, recently, I don't know if you guys remember the case of where a person in the UK was killed by the Russian regime with Novichok. UK now sanction the people behind it. And by sanction, I mean, maybe some travel ban or maybe freezing of accounts. Russian embassy is still in the UK. Like it's laughable the lack of seriousness there is when it comes to dealing with threats to many Western countries. With that, Yar, any last thoughts from you, either about still Marwan Barghouti or generally this sort of fight with evil or fighting evil properly, and well, anything else you'd like to promote besides, of course, the book?
Well, first of all, I want to thank personally to Deborah and Bonnie that showed their support on the chat, and to everyone who wrote in the chat that he bought a book. That's really heartwarming, and I'm really glad about that. So I'm Yar Reichel. I'm an associate of the Ayn Rand Center in Israel, and you can go to aynrand.org.il/about to find out more about the center in Israel. And as mentioned, I am the leader of the movement Victory Now that have just released our book, and the printed version will be out very soon as well. So I'm really glad people are purchasing the book. I'm really glad. It's a great feeling, it's a feeling of a fresh start of something big. So just thank you all, and thank you for having me and allowing me to promote this book here as well.
Yeah, and I have to say, good cover and good color scheme. So recommend people checking that out. Michael, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I think we covered it today. I really hope, for the sake of the young people, that will never achieve any really sort of self-esteem if they don't start to focus on freedom and capitalism and ways to actually build rather than envy, and redistributing the wealth, meaning stealing from someone else by putting a gun to their head and forcing it on those people who don't actually support themselves. And I'm not talking about people that can't. I'm talking about the vast majority of people who can support themselves and choose not to. I hope they do, because it's very hard to build any self-esteem in any way to have a legacy in your life if all you've done is steal from other people. I'm Michael Kaufman, 2 F's in Kaufman. You can find me on LinkedIn.
And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Damn Dan. All the links will be in the description. Thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow with another episode of The Daily Objective. Until then, bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.